health section that I put up why we are doing this discussion is that many scientific researchers have come up with the view that because of air pollution, many women are, there is an increasing risk of heart disease to women. There is more risk of breast cancer to women. What we have seen in the recent time is that more and more women celebrities are coming up with the cases of breast cancer and the cancers. But these are just celebrities that we are hearing about. And there are a lot of normal people that also are facing these diseases. Earlier, when we used to talk about disease, a particular chronic disease or deadly disease, we were more of concern that they have a limit to it. There is a specific age limit to it, but this age limit is also perishing. As we see in the state of Delhi also, there are students going to school, to colleges, are facing heart attacks. Okay, they are rushed to the hospital that we see in the videos. So this thin line of range of age that a disease might put a person at risk is also going away due to higher levels of pollution. And why we say that education is being affected is that there are studies going on which talks about women's reproductive health, that AQI has led to concerns about fertility, as well as there is what disturbances in the menstrual cycle. So when I carry forward it into a research essay, one important primary question to people would remains to be that, do you think, first of all, the concern that, do you think that your menstrual cycles are being affected, women's menstrual cycle are being affected by it, and if they have an observed this change. So again, there are no menstrual leaves that exist in higher education, though there have been many concern of people. There are people in the elections are also, who run the youth elections, are also talking about that they'll bring about these menstrual leave, but they're not there. And in that, the disturbances in the reproductive health and in the menstrual cycle also affects the life of women. So when we say that the women are in the education, we does not only talk about the women who are uh, you know who are very young. There are women in the higher education who are even married. There are women who are facing some chronic disease. There are women who comes from different backgrounds and stratas of life. And thus another factor that comes is the time poverty and externality that these women face. We see over time that more and more younger women are less engaged in the care work at home, doing their house chores, as we are becoming more urbanized. However, the gendered norms still exist in the society, as yet discussed by ma'am, that there are gendered norms, and mostly the women who attain a particular age, 18 and above, are expected that they help their mothers at home. They're expected to be part of that care economy, and especially the women who are married and still involved in the higher education, and they face this time poverty. This time poverty does not only comes from these gendered norms and household chore and care economy, but also comes that for the time poverty towards their education, and education they face is that they have to be the race that goes on in the society, that you have to do skill development through internship, through this and that, and also they have to be engaged in EC activities, in the sports activity. So women are already facing a time poverty, and this air quality that makes women more at risk of being ill, leading to more absenteeism in their, and there more hindrance in their education process. There are more people who are getting ill because they're stepping outside of their home. So this leads to a, what takes us to our next thing, that is the capability approach. What Amartya Sen talks about is that whatever problems that we face, especially the economic problems of poverty, economic inequality, can be do away with skill. But are we people getting enough time to build upon skill is the question, because the education system is already getting deteriorated, that I personally feel, and many people who criticize the new education policy feel so. Those people who criticize the coming up of newer syllabus that are less hectic to people comes up with, but also it comes up with that now, earlier in the state of Delhi we had summer, winter and autumn holidays, but over the years a new type of holidays have come up that have after the COVID, that is the pollution holidays. Unnecessarily and unwantedly you have to be more less in the physical contact with your educational institution, with your teacher. There is less and less time that students are getting to be in physical mode of education, and becoming less and less social, more lethargic in that nature, and receptiveness of a classroom is getting away. I remember in class 12 going to school wearing the mask, and all day the the smoke cover Delhi we see all around. It was something that makes us being concerned about taking more holidays, when in higher education in Delhi, we are not offering much holiday for pollution. Students are asked to give exam, but students are asked to be regular in their class with that requirement of fulfilling attendance. But what we see is that the concern of student and parents are also rising about that, that students should take holidays from their institution and do not go, because they are concerned that at the overall, why they are doing at their efforts in life is also to maintain a healthy lifestyle. And again, this makes that the efforts are very needed in this field, that air quality affects not only our health but the related aspect of education and the receptiveness in the classroom, or the relationship that we build with our educational institution. And another thing is that for decades government have treated air pollution as an environmental issue. However, air pollution is also a human right issue. Whenever we go through some policy documents and everything, they do tell us that the concern about air pollution are very urgent, but this urgency is quite missing when we see implementation. As I submitted my blog for this cohort, what I wrote about is the similar, that there are policies that are coming up, but the effectiveness of these policies is very questionable. And more and more policy are failing to address the issue really. And I think that one important aspect is that we should consider it as a human right issue. Why? Because then and only an agency could come up with how we implement these policy, and how we come up with policy that are more effective, and how we address to always real time monitor the effect of these policies that are coming up to reduce the air pollution. Because what you have seen that their governments have keep on blaming each other, the citizens are not really much aware of how to protect themselves from it, and on the other hand they're not aware about how to give actual efforts to stop it as well, right? And yes, so similarly, the capability approach, as I discussed about Amartya Sen, so it talks about that skill is very important, that we should keep on building our skill to do away with it. And in the sustainable development approach also that we talk about, it is the people who build upon their skill. But are we really building upon these skill? Are females, what is the involvement of female in these issue, and how much these policies are female centric? When we talk about in terms of pollution, there are women in my institution also coming from 2-3 hour traveling to the state of Delhi, even from outside the the city of Delhi, to reach the institution, facing what they're facing, the traveling issue. They are also now facing an issue of air quality and concern. When you reach back home, what one thing that you always see is that more of coughing, more of feeling ill. This has become more pertinent in the city, right? And similarly, another thing that I have put up in the background, this circle, is that the donut economy, as Robert, Kate is the person who advocated it, talks about the donut economy. He says that we have been developing, we have been saying that development will do away with the issue that people face in the society, but it's actually being in this ecological boundaries, that being more concerned about environment and considering environment issue as something which ensure people are getting the most basic of their rights in the society, and not just development. And to substantiate it, we have some statistics also, that in the development indicator, if we see in the state of Delhi, what we have seen is that total fertility is keep on decreasing. Delhi is a state which is in a part of a developing country. It's developing or it's developed is still questionable, but what we have seen that Delhi is at a stage with at low death rate and high birth rate. It's at a stage of demographic transitioning, right, at this maybe in the second stage. So at this stage it is crucial that total fertility amongst women should rise. But what we have seen that in the state of Delhi, in rural and urban region, the total fertility for men and women aggregate has been decreasing over the time, especially in the women. It was 1.8 in 2011, it's 1.4 in 2020. Also, another burden that women face in the state is about the crime. Now, parents, when they send their daughters outside of their home, they are concerned about the crimes that they face. In the state of Delhi, the crimes per women have been higher than at the national level. It was 144 women per lakh in the year of 2022 that are facing crimes against in the state of Delhi. Now, parents are also concerned about not only the crime, but also they're concerned about the health of women. Now, do you think that all the women that are coming up to the educational institution come up from, modern families, from away from stereotypical backgrounds? No, they are also coming from from the smallest of niches, impoverished of niches from Delhi, where still gendered biases prevail and gender norms prevail. So whenever we see in the disaster zones also, whenever there's a disaster, whenever there's a situation, havoc situation, one thing is that women are being considered more frail and more weaker in the patriarchal notion of society, and they are more said not to be going to educate, to pertain education at those times. So similar is that parents are more concerned about the health as well as the crimes that goes on with the women in the state of Delhi whenever it comes to attaining education also. So more and more women face issues with the convincing their parents, the society, to get more and more educated in the state still, because all the regions of Delhi are more associated with these regions of poverty in the peripherals also. And again, the cultural aspect of why we are, putting out these frameworks and why we want some data from primary sources and secondary to compensate is that cultural norms still persist. We women are facing time poverty because they are always expected to be a part of care economy while men are not so. And there is gender stereotyping that prevails, and there are still families in the state, in the country, that believe that women should not be involved in the higher education. So overall, what there are many researches that have been there, and from we can't quote everything in this literature map, but some lines that I've quoted from there. And so the gaps that I have seen is that in on the basis of air pollution, we have in the state of Delhi, there have been more researches and more discussion on the basis of quantitative aspect and the scientific aspect of it, that how it affects the health, or what is the level of pollution, or how it is affecting statistical data, but less of the qualitative approach concerning with the human capital formation, or the qualitatively talking about how it actually affects the education, the receptiveness of a classroom, the choices that people make. And another is that research talks, more researches in air pollution in Delhi or in the India talks about how it affects productivity and output, not at a student level, but at a firm level, but at a workforce level. So discussing about because youth or education is in the long run the major factor that leads to the capital formation, the productivity in the person. So the air pollution is becoming a bigger hindrance to attaining this education. As I said, that there are more holidays that people are getting, there's less of social interaction, physical mode of education that people are having, there is more absenteeism that prevails in the society. So overall, the quality of education also gets affected by this. And lastly is that studies based on the student in particular geographic zone of Delhi and those involved in higher education are also lacking. So that is why it's important that we study about it and we more discuss about it, and we more criticize the policies that goes on, so that we can come up to a situation where air quality is being considered as something as very basic and very urgent to be assured with. With that, I end my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Akshay. Ma'am, were you able to hear the presentation?
Yeah, yeah, I was there.
Okay.
See, Akshay, I would like to say that thank you for the presentation. I would like to add one or two points because you said that I'm not clear from your presentation. Are you looking from, because you said that you are an economic student, and are you looking it from, you said that it is important to look from a qualitative perspective, but I could not see the qualitative methodology or the qualitative methods or qualitative tools that you are saying, because I'm not able to get from your presentation because it is very generic in nature. So if you're taking about, because one of the things that I like in the first poem that you said about it, where you're saying about the pace and you're also saying about the pace. So I like these two things when you're trying to understand the speed of the change as a pace, and then the base as a foundational conditions that is needed for both men and women to thrive in an economic things. So pace and the base, I think, would be very interesting ways in which to look it from a gender perspective. And that too, you have to be one of the things that I want to say that, okay, we can very easily get the theories. It is very easy to get the theories right now. We have the information is on our fingertips, so we will be getting it. But as a researcher, the most important thing that is needed is how you are able to link the theories with each other to make an argument. So right now, what I feel about it, you are saying about the capability theory of Sen, human capital formation that you're saying about the time poverty things, and you're also saying about the externality theory. So you're bringing about the different theories, but how it is connected, one theory connected to the other with respect to the gender, and that too in the AQI is something that needs to be, that link is needed to be formed, you that one after another, how the theoretical thing, and to explain the theory, what are the sampling procedures that you will be taking if you're using a qualitative thing. That is that, see, suppose, like for my from my, like what I'm listening to, you are saying about an externality theory, in economic theory on pollution. You can say about, how the pollution is becoming a negative externalities. Then you can, in that things, you can bring a social stratification of girls and boys into any one of the institutions that you're studying. You may be studying one or two education institution if you're taking the quantitative statistics or a qualitative statistics, and then, and how then, the you can look at that. So suppose one of the things that, that my subject was also, I am an MPhil in economics from JNU. So the whole thing that you can also look at, like a environmental Kuznets curve will be very interesting, you can say about it, especially
Yes,
how
ma'am.
gendered is the environmental Kuznets curve. So you can really bring that out, so that will be very interesting. If you're using a quantitative theory, use that. If you have a data to
But
show about it, so how the pollution rises with income at first and then declines after reaching a point, so that there you can bring the pace. So I am saying that when you're using a poem, it is not a poem, but you're taking that poem to explain that your analysis. So then you say that, okay, in the poem pace, and then the base is something which will be, so how the pace of that and how the environmental Kuznets curve, that you can show with that pace, how the pollution reduction is slow in the early development, and then how it is coming through the strengthening. Then you can look at public goods and action and collective action, something that you again you can bring in, how the air is a public good and how then that has been gendered, and there the base, because you also said about rights based information, so rights to right based discourse of development, you mentioned about that. But then you can connect that with the base, in your poem is saying that how the clean air is a base for and what are public goods and how it is important for the right to live, so that is a foundational base, that is a requirement, and how then it is become gendered. So then you are saying that, I'm saying that you are taking your argument further. And similarly, economic theories of education, human capital theory, are building in, but how the economic theories on female education, and how then the social differentiation of a gender division of labor, where you are bringing in the time poverty. So how the time poverty then is affecting the skill poverty, then how it is affecting the time poverty, then how it is affecting the career poverty, and then ultimately resulting in the feminization of poverty. So then you are bringing in multiple bricks to make a argument of a feminization of a poverty because of the AQI, So then there is an argument that you're making, and then one more thing that you can, because you also, that is it, you're also bringing about sustainable development. It is not only the restrictions, no. There is also opportunity, which I keep on saying. There is also opportunity. How the educated women can bring in a change in the consumption pattern towards the sustainable practices. So that is an opportunity. That is a low carbon choices. You can always speak about it. So then base then will be the literacy. So the pace of the sustainable development, how then the female education connecting that to the literacy, and then connecting to the gender development goal. So this is how you need to connect it. But what I see right now is everything is there, but it seems to be disjointed. And I feel that, okay, you need to bring in these ideas clearly to make that argument connected with one another, interconnected. That is missing. Thank you.
Okay, ma'am. Okay. Thank you, ma'am, for the review.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We just have two more for today. Drishti Juneja, please go ahead.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, you're audible. You can
Oh,
share screen.
okay, just a minute. Is my screen visible?
Yes, it's visible. It's in working mode. You can bring it to
Yeah.
presentation mode. Yes.
So, good evening, everyone. Today, I will be presenting on the topic Beyond Representation Gender Equality in Politics as a Catalyst for Climate Responsive Governance in India. We will try and explore on how closing the gender gap in our political institutions isn't just a matter of social justice, but a fundamental requirement for effective climate action. So, uh, to begin with, we must look at what I call the cracked mirror effect. India is a very vibrant democracy, yet our decision making forums do not reflect our demographic reality. As you can very clearly see in the slide, while women make up 48.4% of India's population, they hold only 13.6% of the Lok Sabha seats. This disparity creates a structural flaw where the perspectives of nearly half of the population are missing from the highest levels of governance. Talking about the unequal effect of climate change on women, as ma'am has also told us previously that first of all, some of us might be focusing on the point that why does this representation gap matter so much for our environment. It is because climate change does not affect everyone equally. So number one, climate sensitive responsibilities. Women in India bear the primary responsibility for food, water, and energy, all of which are threatened by droughts and floods. Livelihood vulnerability. Roughly 84% of women in India are involved in agricultural activities, making them directly vulnerable to climate related income loss. Mortality. Most alarmingly, women and children are 14 times more likely to die during natural disasters than men. In fact, WEDO reports highlight that 85% of the disaster casualties are women. Cascading crisis. Beyond physical safety, resource scarcity increases household stress and conflict, which often leads to increased violence against women. So now I'll be talking about what my objectives and research questions will be. So objectives will be to assess the structural barriers that limit women's participation in the political realm, assess whether there is any relation between women's representation in politics and their efficient climate resilient policies. I also plan to conduct a comparative state level analysis comparing states with active women leadership in climate outcomes versus those which lack women participation. Talking about my research questions is that whether there is any relation between gender representation and environmentally sustainable uh, governance, and how does increased female leadership leads to environmental policy stringency. So, the UN Environment Programme has highlighted that closing the gender gap is essential for effective sustainable development. This relationship between gender and the environment is complex and context specific. Women possess a unique capacity to promote both adaptation and mitigation strategies. However, they often lack the resources to do so, and their perspectives remain a blind spot in the current climate policies. So now we see that the play here clearly depicts two types of Indian states. First are the laggards, which include Uttar Pradesh and Gujarat. So here, female political representation is below 10%. Climate policies often lack ground level reality. Women are treated as vulnerable victims rather than active agents of change. Talking about the leaders, Odisha's Mission Shakti has integrated over 6 lakh self help groups into climate adaptation, increasing community resilience to cyclones. In Kerala, high female participation in local governance has led to leaders who are 20% more likely to prioritize green infrastructure over the traditional grey infrastructure. Globally, we see similar success stories. Talking about Rwanda, with 61% women in parliament, they have seen a 30% increase in reforestation success due to mandatory gender tagging on projects. Second, Finland, female led governance has fostered the institutional trust needed to pass bold climate acts targeting carbon neutrality by 2035. Brazil, municipalities with female mayors reduced greenhouse gas emissions by 23% more than those led by men. New Zealand, under their prime minister, climate change has climate change was reframed as a matter of compassionate survival, leading to Zero Carbon Amendment Act. Talking about the roadmap to the climate resilient India, India needs a systematic reform that places gender at the heart of the climate strategy. Number one is about gender auditing. We must implement mandatory audits for all climate plans to ensure equitable participation. Second is responsive budgeting. We need dedicated climate funds allocated through a gender lens. Third, the just transition. We must support women in vulnerable sectors as we move towards green economy, ensuring no one is left behind. So now, talking about the conclusion, the path to greener India requires us to leverage the unique perspectives and capabilities of women. By championing inclusive policies, we don't just achieve equity, we drive innovation and strengthen the resilience of our entire nation. Thank you.
Yes, yes, Drishti. See, your topic seems to be good, but then the way in which you are approaching the topic is little problematic, especially when you're going to write a research paper out of it. That is good when you're writing a journal paper, because then you can take, statistics or the observations that you see generic. But when you're writing a research paper, we will be having, because your objectives is very specific, but then your methodology, because I could not see, that is the problem that I'm seeing in both the papers that has been presented, because your methodology is not there. Because the research paper, when you're saying, it is important to show the methodology. What is the methodology? Is it a quantitative, qualitative, mixed method, participative methodology? And then what are the methods that you're using in it, and then what are the tools, and then what are the data collection sources? Then that gives me an idea then to give a feedback into it. Right now, from starting from the beginning, you are saying about women. There is no one like women, right? Because especially when we are writing, see, women, that is what I'm saying, when we are writing about a generic thing, then it is good. But when you're writing about a research paper, it is important to bring the intersectionality framework, that women in Kerala, and then women, there is again no one in women in Kerala, the coastal women, because I'm studying about the coastal women, that too in the central Kerala. Then that is quite different from the women in northern Kerala, that is having with the religious differences coming into being, and their ways of living, and then their practices and the political representation that you're looking, that in the north, center, and north, south, and the center Kerala is very different. So is the cases with Odisha, with a lot of migration population into the structure, So that is, like, so then you have to bring in where, what are the areas, how you have to bring in the intersectionality to focus in. That will come through very specifically your methodology. Once you are understanding that, okay, now I'm trying to understand these are the methodological framework to unravel certain questions, and you will be clear about your areas, so you are delimiting, and that delimiting things gives you a perspective. So the women needs to be very specifically says about which women, what women that you're trying to understand in Kerala. Are you looking at the women representation, so which spaces in Kerala that you are trying to look at, like, are you looking at the socio-economically poor section, tribal women, coastal women, caste women? So all these questions are important in both the places, if you are trying to look at that. And then you are saying the second question that you are saying about the climate governance and the political governance. So you're trying to bring a parallel between these two, which is a very good one. So, but there you have to bring in this question about first the whole question, because you're saying about a gender just transition towards the end. So gender just transition is a huge umbrella. So in that gender just transition, what are you trying to look, for the climate governance? Are you trying to look it from a fossil fuel? Are you trying to look at a carbon emission? Are you trying to look at from a standard of living of the people? Or are you trying to look at the adaptation framework? Are you trying to look that, because in Kerala, there are very interesting panchayats, then in Kerala with a zero carbon neutral things has been already there in Wayanad or in some places. So are you trying to look at that spaces? So it is important to understand the climate governance is a huge thing, no? Because it is adaptation, mitigation. Mitigation itself is so huge. So are you trying to look at an adaptation perspective, mitigation perspective, in that what the things, and then the role of women in the climate governance in bringing that change, and their challenges, and then their opportunities when you're looking at the gender transition. So that is not coming up because you are being very, very generic and then trying to see, and that will help you only in writing a journal article, no, sorry, article for a newspaper and not a research article. So research article need the methodological framework in which you need to put that. So that indicators and what are the key, what is a conceptual map? That is why I've given you all of you the template, and which I'm sorry to say that none of you have followed that. Once you have followed it, then like at least a basic. I've given you a very broad template. A conceptual mapping would give you what are the key variables that you're using it to understand, explore it. So then that will give you a more in-depth things of doing. First of all, try to understand: are you doing a qualitative, quantitative, qualitative where that needs to bring in. Okay, thank you.
Okay, ma'am, thank you. But I was thinking of doing secondary data analysis from, credible sources like government reports, academic journals,
So you're
articles.
taking a quantitative study, right? So in
Yes,
that
ma'am.
quantitative study, are you taking for a case study approaches? Are you
Yes,
taking,
ma'am.
if it
Case
is a
study.
case, then case study, which are the cases that you would like to,
Ma'am,
because you
like,
cannot take a Kerala as a whole, no, because Kerala itself has a different ways of political participation of women, and then the way in which that has been manifested into the climate governance is different, because the South Center and the North, Northern Kerala, Southern Kerala, and the Central Kerala are very different with respect to the women participation in their assembly seats and also the climate governance.
yes, ma'am. So, like I talked about India specific, so there I'll be talking about, I'll be dividing into two things. One, who are the leaders where there are more women representation, which has led to more climate policies. I'll be talking about those states, and on the other hand, those states where female representation is very less in politics, which has led to less climate policies.
So your fundamental things is no, in Kerala the female participation in the sabas is less than 9% in this year, but then they are making
Yes,
certain
ma'am.
changes. So
Yeah.
so then you're making a fundamental error there, no.
Okay, okay.
So
Okay,
then
ma'am.
that is what I'm saying. You need to be, because it is for in 2020 last year, that is less than, first time it is coming to a single digit now.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So then there's the whole question. No, there are states like other states which are higher the number, but it's not making. So then you have to make a caveat, like the representation and then the what is the fallacy of the representation, right? So the
Okay.
representation need not bring in the participation. So then that is what I'm saying. You cannot make a generic thing, and you have to look at the
Okay.
caveats, and then you have to say you cannot make a generic thing like a Kerala, like a thing, and there you have to bring in certain very specific. Your idea is good, but then the way in which you're approaching needs to be further strengthened.
Okay, ma'am. Okay. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Mhm.
Thank you, ma'am, and thank you, Drishti. Last, we have Nandita Kannan. Nandita, please go ahead.
Sure. Am I audible?
Yes, you can be a little louder though.
Sure. I'll just start presenting. Is my screen visible?
Yes, it's visible. Your audio is feeble though.
Oh, is it better now?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Uh, Good evening, everybody. Good evening, ma'am. My name is Nandita Kannan. I'm from Chennai. The title for my study is Beyond Access: Gendered and Intersectional Climate Vulnerabilities in Urban Water and Sanitation Infrastructure with regards to Chennai city. Uh, the motivation for this study stemmed from the fact that urban infrastructure in Indian cities is often assessed through aggregate indicators of access and coverage, particularly in sectors such as water and sanitation. I have noticed this even in my city. While these measures signal infrastructural expansion, they operate within the law of averages, which shows that access is unevenly experienced across gender, class, caste, occupation, and even spatial location, which I've covered in the study, which I will get to very soon. Um, Especially under conditions of increased climatic stress. This is more and more evident. Urban infrastructure statistics often it highlights impressive gains both at a local and as well as a national level. However, overall progress masks the deep internal disparities. So, what this paper aims at doing is examining gendered inequalities in access to urban water and sanitation infrastructure in Chennai city, framing such infrastructure not merely as a site of provision or access or exclusion, but as a critical area of climate vulnerability and adaptation. What I've done in this study is so that I could also get a comparative analysis. I have divided the study into two using an intersectional framework. I have undertaken a comparative analysis of women's experiences, lived experiences in North Chennai, focusing on the area known as Tondayarpet, uh, which is a little further away from Washam and Pet, and in South Chennai, focusing on two areas in particular because of ease of access, T Nagar and Mylapore. Now, it is well known that South Chennai is far more developed, and people living in areas in South Chennai have greater access to urban public services. Given this, I've also tried to bring the intersectionality framework into my study in urban Chennai. So I will get to it in my methodologies. But what I've done is I've also tried to understand how access to water and sanitation facilities are different for women within South Chennai itself. So I have been handing out questionnaires to women who are from wealthy backgrounds, women who are pregnant, women who are daily wage workers, who are under the poverty line, etc., so that I can understand climate vulnerability and how it's shaped by class, caste, occupation, disability, pregnancy, spatial location, and not just gender. Uh, uh, Sorry. Uh, so my objectives are broadly divided into three. Firstly, it is to analyze why water and sanitation access is particularly critical for women under climate stress. This is also, as can be seen, my primary research question, which is why is water and sanitation access particularly critical for women under climate stress, and how uneven is access to such services? Secondly, it is to examine differences in women's access to water and sanitation infrastructure between North Chennai and South Chennai, like I mentioned. And thirdly, it is to apply an intersectional framework in understanding these difficulties. The methodology that I have used in the study is can also be divided into three broadly. Firstly, I'm collecting primary data through a semi-structured questionnaire. I will show you the questionnaire in the next slide. So I've prepared a questionnaire which is pretty semi-structured, and through participatory interactions with women from diverse socioeconomic backgrounds in North and South Chennai, I have been trying to collect data. I'm still in the process of doing this because I want my study to be a little bit more intersectional in nature. So I'm trying to find women from different socioeconomic backgrounds. Secondly, comparative case studies of Tondearpet and T Nagar and Mylapore, which is in South Chennai. I've also been trying to get studies which have already been done in the past from credible sources, so I can see if my primary data uh, compares to the studies that have already been done in such regions. Finally, a policy review of the urban and climate related frameworks, mainly focusing on two policy frameworks, the Smart Cities Mission and the Swachh Bharat Mission, and other national climate adaptation policies. And I have been getting statistics from the dashboards of these policies. This is the questionnaire that I've been handing out to the women. For women who cannot read English, because I have found it a little difficult to translate the entire questionnaire into Tamil, I have been going in person and asking them these questions. My questionnaire is divided into 5 sections. Primarily, the first section is background information, which finds out the age, the area of residence, the type of work that the women are doing, their income range, and also to find out if they have any additional, for instance, if they're pregnant or lactating, or if they have a disability, or if they have uh, elderly people in the house whom they're giving care to, etc. Uh, so uh, I was initially asking for the seventh question, which is caste or community, which was optional, but I stopped asking for this because most people aren't comfortable with uh, responding to a questionnaire which asks this. Secondly, the second section is access to water infrastructure, through which I'm trying to find out what the primary source of water is, how many hours of the day water is freely accessible to such women, and if they face difficulties during climatic stress such as droughts or floods. And floods are increasingly common in Chennai, especially when December month arrives. It arrives with a crazy uh, downfall of rain, and this usually leads to flooding in different areas of Chennai, especially North Chennai. So this I'm trying to find out through the second section. Thirdly, sanitation and public toilets. I'm trying to find out what type of toilets are available for these women to use, if they're shared toilets or public toilets, or if they have their own private toilets. And surprisingly, I have found that a lot of these women have to use urban public toilets, um, which are not, which have not been maintained in very good condition. This can be more so seen in North Chennai. I will relate all of these in my findings and results section. The fourth section is climate impacts and gendered burdens. And the last section is participation and governance. The last two sections have a lot of descriptive questions, and it takes a lot more time for me to ask these questions to these women and get good or satisfactory responses. Uh, Thus far, I have gotten about 20 satisfactory results, and I'm trying to increase the number by another 10 or 20. So my findings, the two major things that I wanted to convey through this presentation was that in the study, the major thing that I found was that climate shocks do not create any sort of inequality. Rather, they magnify existing forms of inequality. And secondly, infrastructure resilience is indeed classed, gendered, and spatially uneven. I did see that in North Chennai, women rely heavily on shared taps, tanker water, and public toilets. In fact, I have witnessed myself how these women line up in huge queues. Uh, when the water tanker comes, there are huge fights for just one or two buckets of water. There are long waiting times, especially during summer shortages, as I've been told. And in North Chennai, flooding leads to toilet overflow, water contamination, increased disease risk. People face cholera and other types of waterborne diseases, especially women and young children. And domestic workers and sanitation workers increasingly face increased unpaid care work, and early morning mobility during the floods is very difficult for them. And there has been zero participation in local planning or ward committees, despite several efforts that have been taken. Or rather, there are provisions for this, but women report zero participation in the planning efforts for water and sanitation. And finally, climate stress amplifies the gendered labor. In South Chennai, yes, there is better piped water access, but tanker dependency during droughts and water hoarding responsibility still falls on the women. There is less exposure to floods in such areas because it's relatively affluent. But severe inconvenience has been reported during water scarcity. There is inadequate toilet design for pregnant women, elderly women, and especially during the summer months. Heat stress, there is heat stress due to lack of shaded access. Uh, so there is less greenery in such areas because of increasing urbanization and infrastructural projects. The corporate culture is more in South Chennai, and therefore there is lack of shaded access and lesser access to water, clean water during the summer months. So I am yet to complete my primary research. Hence, I did come up with preliminary policy recommendations, and two of these are to integrate gender disaggregated and climate sensitive data into urban infrastructure planning. Although this is quite uh, generic in nature. One of the even in my studies at my undergraduate level, I have been studying that a lack of gender disaggregated data is the primary cause of most problems, and therefore the first recommendation is to integrate gender disaggregated and climate sensitive data. Um, Second is to design climate resilient water and sanitation facilities that prioritize safety, access, and dignity, because these water and sanitation facilities, urban facilities, are sites of exclusion, as can be increasingly seen through such studies. And finally, it is to recognize unpaid care work and informal labor as central considerations in climate adaptation planning. We were just seeing today how how unpaid care work is not seen as work at all. And I was recently studying a few papers by Susan Donath, where she speaks about the other economy and how a suggestion has been made for a distinctively feminist economics through giving greater representation to unpaid care work. So this is also another policy recommendation. Um, the second picture, the first picture here has been taken from the internet. The second picture here I clicked on when I was doing a fellowship in North Chennai. Um, and how we can see how women they wash their clothes in a certain water body, but they also use the same water for consumption and for domestic use. Um, yeah, this is a picture that I clicked. That is uh, that is my progress thus far. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nandita.
Ma'am, am I still sharing my screen?
Yes, your screen is also
Okay.
yeah, now it's done.
Now it
Okay.
is done. Yeah. So, Nandita, thank you. Um, like I like your work, your research design, because you are bringing in very two interesting elements which I always want students to bring in. One, you are bringing in the intersectionality framework, and second one, you are narrowed down to two specific research sites that is very, very important, that make your study research oriented one. So that way, the first part of the study is really commendable, that you're bringing in the needed elements that is needed to do a research work, which is different from a normal writing. So then I was seeing that when I was looking into your questionnaire survey that has been given, right? I feel that your third questionnaire, that is a third one. Say, first one you're asking about the general socio-economic profile, and the second one you are trying to understand the differential access of water and sanitation across the spaces. So your objective, Nandita, I feel that you can, first objective could be map differential access. So the first one you are saying your research objective is how, but then what is it you can map, because your second question is on that. So that question will give you two. So your research question, because your questionnaire survey, the second data set is saying about how, well, what are the places. So you can, your research objective, I feel, could be to map the differential access to water and sanitation facilities across diverse social settings, the places that you say. So that could be the first one, because you are getting the data from that. So that data will show that how the differential access to water and sanitation, and then the second one, how then that be gendered burden, which you're saying about. First one you say about map the differential access to water and sanitation. We are from that from your second part of your questionnaire survey gives you this answer. That is North Chennai and South Chennai and different places that you're saying you can bring that. And the second one I feel about the gendered burden, and there if you're looking for, if you said that you are going for a primary data collection, you said that you have already done 20 is good enough. There is no need for you to go for further if you're going with 25 questions and 20 participants. And I would like to know whether it's a household responses or whether it's a single person responses, then the 20 is a very good one, that for a smaller group. And then this is for a paper, that is enough. So you don't have to
Ma'am,
go for
I
another
also
paper.
hope it's okay that I answered one of these questions because I am also from the same locality in South Chennai. So I thought that I'm a younger person. I've been mostly asking older women for such responses. So to get a representation from the youth in South Chennai also, I answered this in a very unbiased manner. I hope that's okay.
Yeah, it is fine. Then, like you can also bring in intersectional layer, you can also bring intergenerational into that.
Okay, ma'am.
So because you're saying about the older women, and then the women that 25 years is the one that we speaks about generation, one generation, usually counts as 25 years. So then you can also bring an intergenerational data, that how the old women is looking at that and how they are experiencing the climate, and what about their availability of access of water and sanitation, and then you can connect with that, the climate vulnerability with respect to the age, that is intergenerational, with respect to space that you're bringing north and south, that is, and with respect to the different group of social settings that you're bringing about the with class and caste. So then it will be very interesting to have this multiple intersecting personalities. There you can bring, no, if you're bringing Nandita, then you can bring about multiple deprived vulnerability, MDV. Because suppose that in the South Chennai or the North Chennai, whichever the places you feel that the people belonging to the lower socio-economic rung are facing multiple things. So a caste or a tribal women, because of that positionality of being a Dalit woman, Dalit, and then from a lower class and from being a woman. So the deprivations from the class position, caste position, and the gender position gives a multiple deprived vulnerability. So you can bring MDV with an intersectional and then you can bring old age. Then there is a age factor also. So because of all these things, you can say the women, that is a 70-year-old Dalit women, is having a multiple deprived vulnerability, and that how that existing, because your final word that you are saying that it is not new inequality, that is perfect, because that has already been said by so many research theories as the inequality. No new inequality is being produced, but the existing inequality, that is what IPCC report 6 is also saying about. So existing social vulnerability is being increased or enhanced because of this, and that will add to the climate vulnerability. So how the multiple, not a vulnerability, multiple deprived vulnerability because of the positionality of the women in different status, and how then that can bring it, bring the compounding that with the climate vulnerability. So the first question you can ask about to map the differential axis. Second one, gendered burden across the intersectional and intergenerational vulnerability, thereby giving the multiple deprived vulnerability, and then understanding the climate vulnerability with it, and then analyzing the policy recommendation. So that gives us step analysis to your thing. Yeah? And then you can also go work for the theories like the intersectional theories, and then you can go for the very interesting. I don't know, Nandita, where you have seen it. You can see hydrosocial theories. There are a lot of hydrosocial framework. You are connecting hydrology and sociology together, and says that how it is bringing a new framework. It is a hydrosocial framework of theory where you are saying about social scarcity of water and sanitation. That is, the scarcity of water and sanitation is not physical, like you're saying about, like suppose I'm staying here in Mumbai. So the society that we are living in, just near that there is a slum. So all the people who are living in the flat system we are getting 24/7 water. So the just near down that there is a slum, they are getting, like water twice in a week. So it is not because of the lack of water, because of social scarcity of water. Water is being uh, produced socially scarce. So the social differentiation is producing the scarcity of both water and sanitation. And so there is a theory, social scarcity of water and sanitation, and then how this social scarcity is producing a social vulnerability, which has been and then that is how it enhances the climate variability. So your analysis, you can really bring this, because your questionnaire is giving that data. So that data, you can bring this hydrosocial framework, social scarcity of water and sanitation across the multiple layers that you're bringing in, caste, because I don't know, you said that you are not asking the seventh question, fine. Then you don't have to bring in the caste, but then you are bringing in the different class positions, and you're also bringing age position as a vulnerability. So how then that brings to the um, climate vulnerability. So you can have that. Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Understood. I will do that, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Nandita was our last presentation for today. Then summer left, which will happen then now on the last day of the fellowship, which will
So
be next
when
week.
is the next presentation?
Next week, ma'am. Next Saturday.
Next Saturday means what is the date? Yeah.
It would be 6. I think it's. I'll just check. No, 30. Sorry, 31st.
31st, I'm not here. I'm in Chennai.
Okay. Then 30th. We
There
can't
is an
do.
international seminar happening in IIT Chennai, and I'm there presenting.
Okay. Ma'am, then over the week I'll coordinate with you that what should we do about the date.
Thank you. Thank you.
Because
Thank you.
I'll also have to see the schedule. That's it.
Because I would like, like the students, like by at least by 5th, you give a very strict instruction to the students to give it,
Yes.
participants to
Yes.
give that, so that I can give my comments.
Okay.
Even if, they're giving me the presentations in any other time,
Hmm.
the first week of February, and after
Yes.
that, I'll be quite busy with that. Then,
Yes.
yeah. Thank you,
Okay,
Priya.
ma'am. Okay, ma'am. As the students will be submitting, we'll be on the lookout for that. At least the methodology portion in the write-up should be clearly mentioned. And if that particular thing is there, then we'll compile and send the abstracts to you.
Thank you.
Okay, ma'am. With this, I'll just go ahead with the formal vote of thanks and then we'll just wrap up for today. We are grateful to Manjula ma'am for guiding us in the first session and then for guiding the fellows through their respective research projects. Thank you, ma'am, for your valuable time. We thank all of our participants for actively participating during the presentation session. As always, readings have been shared with you over email, and video of the session will also be available to you via email as well. Now we'll look forward to you on the next last day of the fellowship. We'll coordinate the date and time accordingly. And with this, I'll wish you all a very good evening. And as ma'am has mentioned for the last time, please work on your respective projects. We'll also be giving the similar guidelines to you via WhatsApp groups and through email as well. Thank you so much, ma'am. Have a good day. Okay. Thank you.